and welcome to Book Witches with a B. My name is Orja.
My name's Colleen.
And we have a podcast called Book Witches with a B, where we talk about some of our favorite books, and we like to do deep dive discussions. To give you some background, I studied literature in college.
Yeah, I studied sociology with a minor in cinema and literature.
And so we're going to bring those lenses in to talk about some of our favorite fantasy books on this podcast. So if you enjoy reading and you enjoy like book club type discussions, join us.
Join us, y'all.
Welcome.
Hi, y'all.
Welcome to episode 4 of Book Witches with the B Season 2. We are going to be talking about chapters 16 through 20 of Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros.
We're very excited. All the fun things are happening.
So much fun things happen. So many fun things happen.
We finally have dragons. How about fun?
All right, get ready for a chapter recap. We are very dedicated to our craft of podcasting, and that means sometimes recording on weeknights. So sometimes Colleen is eating dinner while I force her to record with me, and for that reason, I'm allowing her to eat her dinner while I do the chapter recap.
I don't think anyone wants to see me shove food in my mouth. So,
I mean, there's probably a market for that, but that's not who we're catering to.
that is not our target audience, but it is, but that's not our current target audience.
No. All right, so chapter 16, and I have right off the bat, read the excerpt. Though this officer considers himself to be an expert on all matters dragonkind, there is a great deal we don't know about the way dragons govern themselves. There is a clear hierarchy among the most powerful, and deference is paid to elders, but I have not been able to discern how it is they make laws for themselves, or at what point a dragon decided to bond only one rider, rather than go for better odds with two. Colonel Kaori's Field Guide to Dragonkind. So chapter 16 begins immediately after Violet has announced to the field of generals and captains and stuff that she has bonded with Taryn and Andarna. And I'm going to keep this with me here because I have a lot more things to read from this time. Violet has just announced both Taryn and Andarna's names to the Scrollkeeper, meaning that two dragons have chosen to bond with her. Chaos has ensued, with objections and arguments flying around for about half an hour. We learn that Jack Barlow has bonded with an orange dragon. Kaori tells Violet that she will have time to practice and strengthen her muscles for flying, so long as she is able to mount and dismount her dragon, which he observes she will not have a problem with, as Taryn has assisted Violet in dismounting in front of everyone. So she should be able to heal well enough before challenges start up again. Kaori offers to call Nolan to mend Violet, but she refuses as she can't afford to appear weak in front of everyone and their dragons. Rhiannon and Riddick and a few other members of the squad, not including Tynan and one other cadet, have made it back with dragons. We find out that Jack's shoulder will need surgery to heal, and Violet is rightfully smug about it because she shredded it in their little tussle in the woods.
Get it, Violet.
Violet is done being scared of Jack. He ran away from the field. Jack tries to confront Violet, but Kaori stops him. She's bonded to the most powerful dragon in their year, and if Taryn senses any threat to Violet, he will kill Jack immediately. Jack's all like, oh, hiding behind a professor, and Professor Kaori has this moment where he's like, she doesn't need me to defend her. Take 2 steps back. Taryn's about to kill you, dude. Violet, again stupidly in my opinion, doesn't tell anyone what Jack did out in the valley, and Jack is left off the hook again. Kaori informs Violet that she is the first ever rider to have 2 dragons choose to bond with, and that though leadership is arguing, it's not actually their choice at all. The dragons will decide whether it is allowed or not. After being fixed up, Violet goes back to Taryn and Andarna, and tells them that they're causing quite a stir. Taryn tells Violet to not leave the field. The meeting of the Empyrean will decide what will happen. The Empyrean is the dragon's ruling class. Taryn also orders Violet to stay close to the wing leader, until he returns. That's right. Stay close to Xaden Ryerson. As soon
Hey,
as oh, you're back.
sorry, I'm back.
As soon as the dragons have left the field, the first year riders converge at the center of the field to celebrate with their fellow surviving riders. Rhiannon and Riddick are super excited for Violet. We find out that Rhiannon has bonded a green dagger tail that she had been thinking about approaching, and its name is Fierg. Fierg. Riddick has bonded a brown sword tail named Iatrum, and sweet baby Sawyer has successfully bonded a dragon this year, a red sword tail named Sleeg.
Yeah.
We find out that Trina is the other missing cadet from the squad. She did not survive. She fell from the back of an orange clubtail. And then Violet tells everyone else that Taryn killed Tynan. And as she's about to tell her group of friends why Taryn killed Tynan and what Jack, Tynan, and Orin tried to do, Dane interrupts and hugs her really tightly. He's worried that Violet is hurt. I just find him so annoying, but that's fine. And she informs him that this is all that's left of their squad, so 4 out of 9 are left, which is rough, but to be expected.
But it's not that many.
It's not a lot. Dane then drags Violet to a shadowed corner to ask what happens. And then he's like, they're gonna make you choose, and you need to choose Andarna because she's safer. Violet is extremely annoyed, as she should be. And then she's like panicking a little bit because she already has this bond with both. So she's like, are they gonna make me choose? She can't fathom the idea of choosing one or the other already, which I thought was interesting. But she notices as she asks into her mind if they're going to make her choose that she doesn't feel a connection to anything there. And so she panics a little bit more. Then cut off from her dragons while they're in the Empyrean meeting discussing the fate of the 3 of them. Dane once again tells Violet that she needs to choose Andarna because Andarna is too small to bear a rider, and maybe Violet won't have to go and be in the war efforts. Maybe she can become a professor like Professor Kaori. Violet rejects this stupid idea and is very upset that Dane is trying to take her choice out of the equation. Dane reveals to Violet that Taryn and Sigale are a mated pair, which we will discuss more in deep dive, which means that they can't be separated for more than a few days, meaning that she's actually tethered to Xaden Ryerson. And he uses this as like, he's like, Xaden interfered with the threshing, is what he's trying to tell her. He reiterates that Xaden is dangerous. He's going to use this, bond to kill Violet. And Violet tells Dane about Jack's group hunting Andarna and Violet trying to fend them off, and the fact that Xaden was watching and shouted to warn her. So, like, if he wanted to kill her, he really would have done it by now.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
He's had so many instances.
so many, so many. Unfortunately for all of us, Dane only latches on to the fact that Xaden was watching what happened. Dane tells Violet that Xaden told Taryn to come and bond with Violet, as if dragons listen to anything human had to say. Right as he's telling this, Xaden appears to inform Dane that, in fact, it was Sigale who saw Violet defend Andarna and called to Taryn, her mate, and Xaden and Sigale had actually already left when Taryn made the decision himself to bond with Violet. Xaden had nothing to do with it. All this time, Violet is extremely annoyed by how much she's affected by Xaden because he's just too hot.
We've all been there. We've all been attracted to a guy we don't want to be.
It's true. Dane's accusation of Xaden interfering with threshing is like a huge accusation to level. Xaden asks Dane if he's going to report Xaden. He's basically like, first of all, I didn't really interfere, and even if I did interfere, are you really going to report me from taking an action that saved the one person that you claim to be your best friend?
That's what we want to try to save, apparently.
Say that again?
But he like so desperately wants to save, apparently.
Right, exactly. Xaden hesitates and he says there's rules. There's rules. To which Xaden says, well, would you bend the rules? Would you not bend the rules to save Violet? Which, might I add, Dane has been trying to do this entire time with sneaking her off to the scribe quadrant. But Dane says no, he would not have saved Violet. And Violet is like, wow, That sucks.
Boo.
The dragons return, and Xaden reveals to Violet that if she dies, he will likely die. And here's the thing that I need to explain for that, which I have in my notes, is that so we know that Taryn and Sigale are mated, right? And then Xaden is bonded with Sigale, and now Violet is bonded with Taryn. And so basically, he informs her that, like, the stronger a dragon is, the stronger their bonds are, both with their mated pair and with their, like, dragon rider bonds. And Taryn is like incredibly powerful. The last time his rider died, he almost died, and each like next bond is stronger than the last, which means that there's a really good chance that if Violet dies, Taryn is gonna die, which means that Sigale is gonna die, which means that Xaden is gonna die.
It seems like a bad setup.
It's a whole thing. We find out that Oren Seifert remains unbonded, so he's one of the 41 unbonded riders who's very dangerous to Violet now because they're all going to try to kill her to get at Taryn.
Also serves him right.
Yep.
He was awful, and that's what happens when you waste your time trying to kill somebody and not bond the dragon.
Exactly, as we said in our previous episode. Okay, Andarna informs Violet that all riders were cut off, not just Violet, because no human is allowed to know what the Empyrean discusses. General Melgren announces that Violet will be allowed to keep her bond with both Taryn and Andarna. Again, it's not really up to the humans, it's up to the dragons. The riders are instructed to step forward, and Violet receives her relic, which is obtained through dragonfire. It's a big black dragon that spans her shoulders with the silhouette of a small golden dragon in between, which is so cool. Fun fact, Violet is able to see it even though it's on her back because she can see through her dragon's eyes. So Andarna shows her what the relic is. Dane apologizes for his accusations and his behaviors and tells Violet that she has to know how he feels about her. And then he kisses her, and Violet is thrilled at first, but very quickly realizes that she feels nothing. It was everything she'd always wanted, but oh crap, she doesn't want it anymore.
Because he's acting like a jerk.
He's the worst.
That's why. It's the moment that, yeah. Also, that part sucks. Like, when you're, like, wanting this thing so bad, you're like, it's finally happening. He's finally bending the rules for once. For once. And then it's like kissing. Yeah, it's just bad. It's like kissing a fish.
Yeah, it's just
It's
bad.
not a fun time.
Chapter 17. It is therefore only natural that the more powerful the dragon, the more powerful the signet its rider manifests. One should beware of a strong rider who bonds a smaller dragon, but even warier of the unbonded cadet who will stop at nothing to seize a chance to bond. Major Athendra's Guide to the Rider's Quadrant, unauthorized edition. So we start on the next morning, and as Violet is walking to the breakfast hall, she sees Sawyer coming out of Rhiannon's room.
I don't think I knew that.
Did not put two and two together.
I don't think I had, like, processed who Sawyer was at this point. That's so funny.
Yeah, they had been celebrating the night before.
I mean, valid. They didn't die.
Violet is no longer on breakfast duty. All of the undesirable duties have been handed off to the unbonded so that the new riders can conserve their energy for flight lessons. This means that Violet can no longer take down her challengers with poison. We get the tidbit that the riders now have their own rooms, so they're no longer sharing with others. So Violet finally has her own room, a little bit of privacy. It's nice.
Hence why Sawyer was coming out of Rihanna's room. Yeah.
Yeah. Rhiannon asks why Violet didn't celebrate with Dane because she heard about the kiss, because everyone heard about the kiss.
Why would you?
Violet explains that there's just nothing there between them. And then Violet thinks about how she seems to be the only one who didn't celebrate becoming a dragon rider that evening.
I honestly think she might have been.
She definitely was the only one.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Like we said, the Dragon Riders quadrant is full of only hot people. Like, all of these hot
Sadly,
people.
even Jack Harlow.
Sadly, even Jack Barlow. All of the hot people who are thankful to be alive are having glad we're alive celebrations.
Yeah.
Except for Violet.
Except for Violet, who honestly don't even think it crossed her mind to do.
Honestly, no. Because I mean, if anything, she would have wanted to do it with Dane, but now she knows that she doesn't. So
Yeah, it's true.
they get to the dining hall where Orin glares at Violet from the breakfast duty line. She is she's panicking a little. She's like, I better only eat stuff that I know he can't have poisoned for me. And so she basically picks up like a fruit and goes to find seats, with her friends. They get to a table that has a few people sitting and they're like, hey, can we sit down? And the group of people are like, absolutely, Sorrengail. And they all leave the table and go find another seat to clear it for her and her friends. It turns out that having bonded with Taryn, Violet's social standing has suddenly skyrocketed. The riders at the table get up and find seats of their own, and in turn, Jack's social standing has plummeted. He bonded a very small orange dragon. So apparently, social standing is now ranked once you're a rider, it's ranked on how powerful your dragon is. And Violet bonded the most powerful dragon of their year.
Almost to the continent. Like, second, probably to, like, Sigil and Coda.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So, Imogen and a third year named Quinn sit at Violet's table, and then they're also joined by two other third years, Emery and Heaton. Violet reveals that Orin likely didn't bond because he tried to kill Andarna. Rhiannon and Imogen tell Violet that she needs to eat more than fruit, and Imogen gives her some protein from her own plate. Violet has a moment because she's like, well, Imogen hates me. But Taryn tells her that she can trust Imogen. So she's like, okay, so she eats her protein. Basically, Taryn's like, you can trust her, and she catches Imogen looking at Xaden, who she now knows on some level, like, needs to keep her alive. Otherwise, the whole four people, probably five dying. I feel like Andarno would probably die too.
So small, yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, well, clearly Xaden told her to come and sit with me. Like, okay, whatever that's about. Um, so the people at her table start discussing signets a little bit. Emery can manipulate air. While they're talking about signets and all the exciting things to come, Imogen tells Violet that in addition to sparring training with Rhiannon, she needs to do weight training with Imogen, and they're going to start that night so that she can strengthen her muscles and survive the challenges. Violet knows now that this is on Xaden's orders.
Yeah.
And then she notices that many of the marked ones who are close to Xaden are acting worried because Violet is tethered to him. While she's noticing this, she kind of looks over at Xaden and gets like the tingle in her head. And Xaden is just sitting there peeling the apple, and it's just like really hot. He's like sitting there peeling the apple with a knife, and like he does that thing where you go all the way around without breaking the peel.
That is attractive because it's hard to do.
It's very attractive.
Takes skill.
And then while he's doing this, he feels her eyes on him, and so their eyes meet, and she's like, they find out later that day, they find out that only 92 dragons bonded, which is the smallest group yet, even though 101, oh, well, 102 were willing to bond. And there's 41 unbonded, and two dragons chose Violet. So it's kind of like a little alarming that so many remained unbonded.
If we would describe Taryn as willing to bond, I think it was just happened to bond.
I think you might be correct about that.
Like, he did, but, like, he wasn't really willing. He was just like, I guess I'm here.
Right,
This
he
one
saw
looks
her
fine.
and he was like, I wonder if he knew what Andarno was thinking and was like, damn it.
Well, because, like, if he's put, if, like, he knew she was put, and he's like, I have to protect both of you now. Fine. She seems smart enough. I'm gonna take that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During their first flight training, the first objective is to stay on the dragon through a variety of flight moves. Taryn holds Violet in place with his magic as he does various maneuvers, but he does them harder than the professor's dragon is doing. Violet insists that she needs to learn how to stay on herself because if Taryn is using his magic to hold her on, then he's not going to be. I mean, that's taking away from the energy that he's going to need when they're like in war to give her power for her signet. She's like, you can't waste your energy on keeping me on you. I need to learn how to stay on myself. And she's like, "You need me to do this too." So he grumpily agrees, and for the rest of flight training, she basically falls again and again off of his back. He keeps catching her and throwing her back onto his back, but she basically falls like every single maneuver for the rest of the flight hour. After dinner, on her way to meet Imogen for weight training, Violet runs into Dane. They discuss her flight training with Taryn, and Dane mentions their kiss. And he's basically like, it shouldn't have happened. And Violet's like, yeah, I agree. Like, she's happy that he thinks that it shouldn't have happened. She realizes that it's not because he didn't feel anything for her, but it's because it's frowned upon to fraternize with the chain of command. I wrote in parentheses, huge eye roll. Like, come on, man. He's oblivious to the fact that Violet doesn't have feelings for him, and he basically thinks that he's like letting her down easy. Again, in parentheses, vomit.
Yeah, I'm surprised, and I don't know, this is like his lack of experience, but I feel like if you're kissing somebody and they're not into it,
You should be
you
able to
can
tell.
tell. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you can definitely tell.
And then I love this. She's like, I wasn't expecting it, but this is all about politics for him. It's not about his feelings. And she like loses respect for him, which like,
Yeah,
yeah, I would too. Um, and then the rest of the chapter basically Imogen trains Violet on her muscles. And we go to chapter 18. There is nothing more sacred than the archives. Even temples can be rebuilt, but books cannot be rewritten. Colonel Daxton's Guide to Excellence in the Scribe Quadrant. This is like my favorite introduction of a new character.
I'm very excited for this.
So, Violet has replaced breakfast duty with library duty, retrieving and returning books for professors every morning. Which brings her to the scribes quadrant. And so like there's a little bit of nostalgia there. We all love a good book smell. Let's be real. Um,
Yeah.
but Violet is like, although like it is very nostalgic for her, she's like, but I'm a writer now. Like you can tell there's something different in her now that she's been
Mhm.
flying on Terran weekly, if not more often.
Yeah.
We meet Justinia Neilwort, which we'll talk about in deep dive. But I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I didn't write this in my notes, but just want to throw this in there. If you want a good example of introducing diversity into a book without it being like I am introducing diversity in. First of all, we have a lot of characters of
Mhm.
different, races and all of cultures and all of that. Also
Mhm.
of different sexual orientations, and it's just like it's not a thing. It's just
Yeah.
shown casually.
It's never addressed.
It's
It's just a thing.
it just is. Jacinia
Mhm.
does not speak, and Violet signs with her.
Yeah,
Like it's
she's no
just
sign language.
casual. Like we're introduced to Jacinia, and Violet is just talking to her with their hands, and they're just having full on conversations with their hands, and it's not a thing. It just is, and like good job, Rebecca Yarros.
She did great. It did take me a long time to realize this wasn't just a Jacinia thing. I thought it was like all scribes now can't talk because you have to be quiet in the library and you have to sign
That
for
would
a
be
very long
amazing.
time. I just kind of assumed that you other people talk later on.
Yes.
I just assumed,
Other people talk later on in this chapter, but that's fine.
yeah, I really I missed it. It was like truly until like the
That
next
is
book
how
that I realized it.
non-intrusive it is. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was very cool. So we meet Jacinia, Violet's friend from back when she was still planning on becoming a scribe. As a stab of homesickness hits Violet when she's talking to Jacinia about being a writer, she requests for Jacinia to, if they have a copy of the Fables of Baron, if she can have it. Jacinia is not familiar with the text, but she says that she'll definitely go look for it. While Violet is waiting for Jacinia to return, she actually runs into Professor Markham, who has a squad of first year scribes. And it's clear that Markham is extremely proud of Violet for everything that she's accomplished. He's also like, the Writers Quadrant stole her from us.
Yeah.
So, and she like talks a little bit to some of the squad the first years, and it's like a cute thing. Jacinia returns and tells Violet that she was unable to find the Book of Folklore in the library, which is odd to Violet because the scribe's library is supposed to contain at least one copy of almost every document written. in Navarre. Other than a forbidden or extremely sacred text, there's no reason why this book shouldn't be in the scribe's library. But she is like, then again, I never came across it when I was studying to be a scribe. So like maybe it's just something my dad wrote or that he had. Like, I don't know. But I thought that that was interesting.
Well, that's weird. Yeah.
Later at breakfast, Jasenia then notes that Violet looks different. Not bad, but stronger, better posture. You know, she's like, you're different. And Violet reassures her that she's really happy. And Jasenia is like, I'm really happy too. And it's just a really sweet moment. And I mean, you know, because they're friends and they definitely didn't think they would ever see each other again. The odds of Violet surviving were very slim when she left.
Incredibly true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jacinia basically is like, I promise to try to be here for your library duty hours so that we can like see each other and catch up and I can help you with whatever you need. And it's just a really sweet moment. We find out that the squads have been rearranged to accommodate the diminished numbers. So there's new people in Violet's squad. And these new people are really biased against marked ones. And it seems like basically like Violet, Rhiannon, Sawyer, and Riddick, not biased against the marked ones. But these newcomers are very much biased against them. We find out later at breakfast, we find out that Sawyer's signet has manifested. He's a metallurgist. Metallurgist?
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird word.
It's a weird word. It's going to say it in the audiobook, so.
He can manipulate metals, and he's the first of their year to manifest a signet. We find out that if a signet hasn't manifested by around the 6-month mark, it's not a definite, but it's ballpark that area, the rider will burn out and die from the excess of power being sent to them through the relic, which is
terrifying.
Yay. Riddick's like, it's always something around here.
And he's like, thought we were fine.
Riddick. And then Xaden hasn't said a word to Violet since threshing, but he's kept upperclassmen on guard duty, all with rebellion relics, by the way, making sure that Violet is safe. And she's like, this is kind of annoying. And then we learn about Professor Carr, who is the Wielden professor. Sawyer is like, he's terrifying. I wish more of you would manifest so I didn't have to be alone with him.
Mm-hmm.
Though Violet is... so then we move on to like flight training. So it's been a few weeks now, and though Violet is still falling from Terran's back for some maneuvers, she's gotten a lot better. She's falling much less than she was in the beginning. So then they land, and then all of a sudden, Terran gets very like, grr. And it looks like Dane is storming towards Violet. Terran does not take kindly to it. And he ends up being like, you tell that man that if he hurts you, I will scorch the earth that he stands on. And Violet like paraphrases it, and he's like, tell him word for word.
He's like, no, don't paraphrase it. This is a promise. This is an oath. He needs to know.
And let's see. Why is Dane angry? Because Violet didn't tell him that she can't keep her seat, even though it's not a secret. He should know. Everyone knows. And Violet stands up for herself a little bit. She's like, everyone knows. Like, what is it? What is your problem? And she starts walking away. And then he follows her. He's like, I'm more upset that you didn't tell me. And they argue a little bit more. Dane's just got this crazy need for control, and he turns Violet's whole experience, he makes it about him. It's so frustrating. I know I've said this multiple times. It's so unbearable at this point. I would like to reach into the book and smack his stupid face.
Honestly, I think if Violet would have done it sooner, I think we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. And like, I understand where she's coming from, like, best friend for years and years and all of that, but like, come on, dude. It's
at
so
this point.
Then Dane continues to put his foot in his mouth. He has a problem with Imogen training Violet because Xaden asked her to. And he's saying that basically Xaden doesn't have Violet's best interests at heart because he like let her get away with bending the rules at Gauntlet. And then he's like, yeah, Amber yelled at me for an hour about it. Which like, why, Amber? Just why?
Also, Amber's a nightmare.
Amber is
I hate her. I hate Amber more than I will ever hate Dane.
And so will everyone else when we're done with this chapter recap, honestly.
Oh, yes.
Violet shoots back that Dane didn't ask Violet what happened at the gauntlet. He's just taking Amber's word for it. She's like, I didn't cheat. I I defended myself using the codex. You didn't even talk to me about it. You're just taking Amber's word for it that I cheated. To which he replies, Amber's a wing leader, and he won't question a wing leader, even though he continuously questions his own wing leader, which is Aiden Ryerson. This man and his stupid bleeping everything. I can't. I'm so mad. Okay. Dane reiterates that he wishes he could help Violet. Like he wants to, and he's hurt that she won't ask him for help. And he's just super terrified that she's not gonna make it to graduation and that she's gonna die. He's so scared that she's gonna die, even though he admitted that he wouldn't do anything to stop it. And Violet finally loses it. I'm terrified you're not gonna make it to graduation, Vi. His shoulders slump. You know exactly how I feel about you, whether or not I can do anything about it, and I'm terrified. It's that last line that does me in. Laughter bubbles up through my throat and escapes. His eyes widen. This place cuts away the bullshit and the niceties, revealing whoever you are at your core. I repeat his words from this summer. Isn't that what you said to me? Is this who you really are at your core? Someone so enamored with rules that he doesn't know when to bend or break them for someone he cares about? Someone so focused on the least I'm capable of doing, he can't believe I can do so much more? The warmth drains from his brown eyes. Let's get one thing straight, Dane. I take a step closer, but the distance between us only widens. The reason we'll never be anything more than friends isn't because of your rules. It's because you have no faith in me. Even now, when I've survived against all odds and bonded not just one dragon, but two, you still think I won't make it. So forgive me, but you're about to be some of the bullshit that this place cuts away from me. Yay!
I think this is the point where she's like really gaining some. Honestly, if I hung around Imogen that much, I think you'd have to be relatively confident in yourself because Imogen very much is.
Yeah.
But I think she finally felt like she was a writer and deserved to be there, which I think is why she could do this with Dane.
I think so too. As Violet is about to tell Rhiannon what's happened, a first year runs into the courtyard screaming and clutching his head, and then he starts saying people's thoughts out loud. Like he starts pointing at people and saying what they're thinking. He's an intrinsic, he can read minds, and this signet is actually a death sentence. Xaden orders Violet to clear her thoughts and start reciting knowledge that she's memorized because she holds some secrets of his that can't be revealed. Um, Professor Professor Carr snaps the rider's neck right before he can blurt out whatever he was going to say from Garrett's thoughts, which was presumably something about the meetings that the marked ones have been having. Later that night, Violet is dreaming about her father, and Taryn's voice interrupts and urges her to wake. She wakes up, and then Taryn urges her to move as she hears a voice saying, "Oh no, she's awake." A sword comes at Violet, but hits the dragon scales vest that she sleeps in, saving her once again. And she falls to the floor, daggers at the ready. Somehow, 7 cadets have entered her locked room and plan to kill her. And then she realizes, nope, not 7 cadets. One of them is a rider who has magic. The rider flees when she notices that Violet has looked at her. Um, of course, to no one's surprise, Orin is the leader of the cadets remaining, the unbonded cadets. Taryn is trying to coach Violet to stay alive as he's like, he's on his way. Violet gets cornered. She does injure a lot of them, but she doesn't kill anyone. And so she like ends up getting cornered, and Orin gets his hands around her neck and he's choking her to death. And she's
Just so terrifying.
yeah, very,
So
very scary. She's like
Mhm.
literally choking to death. She's about to die when Andarna shrieks mine into Violet's mind. Violet feels this crazy power coming into her, and everyone freezes except for Violet. Chapter 19. In response to the Great War, dragons claimed the western lands and griffins the central ones, abandoning the barrens in the memory of General Jaramor, who nearly destroyed the continent with his army. Our allies sailed home, and we began a period of peace and prosperity as the provinces of Navarre united for the first time behind the safety of our wards, under the protection of the first bonded riders. Navarre, an unedited history by Colonel Lewis Markham. Pretty cool. So everyone in the room is frozen aside from Violet, and Andarna is basically like, I can't hold this for long. Hurry, get yourself out of danger. So Violet moves out of Oren's grasp and away from her attackers. She sees that she's successfully really wounded a couple of them, and she's like trying to move as quickly as she can to like the only open space that's left, which is the door, and she stumbles into a figure. Xaden is there. He's also frozen. And his shadow tendrils are also frozen. His shadows were reaching out to probably save her. Taryn definitely sent Xaden to save her. Everything unfreezes. Xaden has like a flash of surprise that Violet is suddenly in front of him, but he strides forward and he tells the room, he turns on the lights and he tells the room of attackers that they're all expletive dead. He then tells them that what they've done is against the codex and that the dragons, because they're like, we're trying to fix a mistake, we're trying to kill her, like Terran shouldn't have bonded, he made a mistake. He's like, dragons don't make mistakes. And then he strangles everyone to death with his shadows, other than Oren, who he wants to kill with his own hands. He has a shadow tendril pick up a discarded dagger of Violet's, and then he cuts Oren's throat open, informing him before he does so that mercy, which Violet showed him at threshing, is not a flaw that Xaden possesses himself.
Not even close. Yeah.
Not even close. So it turns out Garrick and Bodhi are with Xaden as well, and they're like, we on cleanup duty? And Violet's like, because there's 6 bodies in my room. Oh yeah. Violet is rightfully so, like starting to panic, and there's adrenaline in her veins, and she just keeps on chanting, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. And then the adrenaline leaves her system and the pain floods in, and she's like, oh, like there's a lot of pain. She's taken quite a beating. Xaden is assessing Violet's injuries, and Taryn is like, you need to trust Xaden. And so she tells him that she's not dead because of the dragon scale vest that she wears. And Xaden is basically, well, so he sees the bruise around her neck left from Oren, and he's like, I didn't kill him slow enough. Like, he is extremely violent right now. I'm dying. More people come in to help. There's like 2 more people to come and help Bodhi and Garrick carry the bodies out. Violet notices that they're all fully dressed despite being 2 o'clock in the morning, and that they all have rebellion relics, and Xaden is giving them orders as well. Once the others leave the room, Violet shrugs out of her nightdress and tells Xaden that he'll have to help her with the vest, to which he says, I know how to handle a corset, and me and every other person attracted to men collectively swoon. So Xaden's also treating Violet as if she's like this precious thing to him, which Violet is like confused, but is like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Xaden then tells Violet that they need to hurry, and he sneaks her out of her room. She's not sure where they're going yet, but that's fine. And then I said, favorite quote ever, page 228. So I'm gonna go there. Where are we going? The hallways are dimly lit by blue mage lights, the kind that signal it's still night for those without windows. Keep talking loud enough for others to hear, and someone will stop us before we get anywhere. Can't you hide us in shadows or something? Sure, because a giant black cloud moving down the hallway isn't going to look more suspicious than a couple sneaking around. He shoots me a look that keeps me from countering. Point taken. Not that we're a couple. Not that I wouldn't climb the man like a tree if presented with the right set of circumstances.
I think this might be the right set of circumstances, Violet.
So he leads her to a hidden tunnel. And while they're walking through it, Violet and Xaden banter a little. He's leading Violet to Taryn in the flight field to figure out like what the heck happened. What was that whole? How was she in one place and then all of a sudden in the next place?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you're gonna have to add the secret tunnel to the list of secrets that you're already keeping for both of us. She's like, whatever. So they get to the flight field. Taryn, Segale, and Andarna land on the flight field. Andarna rushes towards Violet and brings her face to Violet's ribs, and she's very clearly extremely panicked. And Violet assures her, like, I'm okay, I'm okay. I'm not injured, nothing's broken. It's bruised pretty badly, but I'm okay. We learn that Taryn can communicate with Xaden, which is an extension due to the mated bond between Segale and Taryn. And Xaden and Tarn are arguing, which is wild. Like, what?
I don't think Zayden is afraid of anything.
No, I don't
Truly.
think so. It turns out that Sagail can also communicate with Violet, which makes sense, but also again, wild. Extremely wild. Uh, and it's confirmed that it's because of the mated bond, because Xaden cannot hear Undarna. So Violet does have to translate what Undarna says. And basically, they're like, you need to tell us what happened. If you want me to keep her alive, you need to tell me what the heck just happened. Like, what is going on? And then we get one hell of a crazy, crazy information drop here. We find out that turns out the time freezing is Undarna's power. She accidentally transferred her power to Violet, which is not the same thing as a signet because that's the combination of a dragon and a rider's power. This was Undarna's power in Violet. It turns out that feathertails don't bond because they're not allowed to normally because they're baby dragons. Undarna is 2 years old and will be fully grown in about a year or so. Sagail and Tarn are not her parents. They're her guardians. Undarna's parents died when she was still in the egg, which is sad. Um, if leadership knew, Violet has this sudden realization, if leadership knew that Feathertails can transfer their powers to riders rather than the signet, Feathertails would be hunted, and that's why no one sees Feathertails ever. That's why they're so protected by dragons. And now her and Xaden both hold this knowledge, and they're sworn to secrecy by the dragons. And Undarna's basically like, I trust you. I know you're not gonna abuse this power that we have, and I know that you're gonna keep my secret. It's very sweet. I love Undarna. Transferring all of that power to Violet drained Undarna severely, so it's imperative that she gets back and rests, and it's also, again, stressed that this needs to be kept secret. On their way back to the rooms, Xaden asks Violet again how the cadets got into the room, and Violet says there was a rider with them. Xaden asks for a name, and Violet just shakes her head because she thinks there's no way he's going to believe me. There's absolutely no way. Remember, she's thinking about Dane, who definitely wouldn't believe her.
Yeah.
So he's like, listen, we need to learn to trust one another. All of our lives depend on it. Tell me who you saw. Bless you. Tell me who you saw let the cadets into the room. And then we get to chapter 20.
Ooh.
Accusing a wing leader of wrongdoing is the most dangerous of all accusations. If you're right, then we failed as a quadrant to select the best wing leaders. If you're wrong, you're dead. My Time as a Cadet, a memoir by General Augustine Melgren. The next morning, 6 of the 8 names on the death roll are the 6 cadets who attacked Violet. Violet has told her squad what happened, but leadership does not seem to know. And then Xaden walks into the room, and Violet admits that she wants Xaden despite everything. She's like, clearly, I want him, and there's nothing I can do about it.
After that whole display last night, I don't think anyone would not.
No one would have, yeah, agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. Xaden switches a rider in Dane's squad with one of the other marked ones, Liam Mari, and it looks like Xaden is taking no more chances with Violet's safety. After last night, he's like, yeah, so Liam's gonna be in your squad now. Have fun with that. Commandant Panchak takes the podium, which is unusual, doesn't usually happen. He's there to address a breach of the Codex, and then Xaden is called forward to accuse Amber Mavis of orchestrating the attempt to murder Violet in her sleep. Dane exclaims in disbelief. He urges Violet to tell everyone that Xaden is lying. He simply does not believe that a wing leader would do such a thing, again disregarding all of the accusations that he's hurled at Xaden. And also, in spite of Violet telling him that it was Amber who was in her room last night, he's like, you saw wrong. Tell everyone, you need to stop this. It wasn't Amber. She wouldn't have done it. You're wrong. And so he tells her it's impossible, and then he steps forward to touch her face so that he can read her memory without asking for permission. If we remember, Dane's signet is being able to see the recent memories of a person when he touches their temples. She steps back and then he orders her. He's like, "Give me the memory." And she knows that she can't do this without giving away Andarna's secret. And she's basically like, "If you touch me without my permission, we're going to have a problem." And in order to kind of stop all of this, basically Xaden calls for a quorum of the wing leaders. In addition to the quorum, 6 dragons have come to witness as well, including Tern, Sigale, and Clade, which is Amber's dragon, which is an orange dagger tail. Fun fact.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Dane implores Violet to stop all of this. Amber cares too much about the rules to have done this. Violet doesn't know what she saw. She couldn't possibly be Amber. Violet asks Taryn to share a memory with everyone, only the right parts, because Xaden is up there fighting only directly because of what Violet told him. And even though it's never been done before because of the situation, Taryn agrees to share the memory of what happened, the right parts, with the other dragons. All of the dragons go still, and then all of the riders as well, and Violet knows that everyone knows what Amber did to her. Violet yells at Dane. "Believe me now, I hurl it like the accusation it is. You're supposed to be my oldest friend, Dane. My best friend. There's a reason I didn't tell you." He staggers backwards. I think he's finally like, oh. I think he
Mhm.
finally might be like, oh, was I wrong?
Oh, that's exactly what he's thinking, but I'm mad that he's definitely wrong and
He's
he's
so
still
wrong.
trying to process that he
Wrong.
maybe wasn't wrong.
So then the quorum finds Amber guilty, and Amber will be scorched to death. The orange tries to stop it, but Taryn puts the dragon in its place. Violet sees that the orange dragon will suffer greatly and tries to stop Amber's execution. She actually ends up begging for mercy for Amber because she doesn't want the dragon to feel that loss. Taryn is basically like, "I will not let another threat live because of your mercy. So no, I'm sorry." And Amber is killed, executed by fire. And it ends on a heartbreaking note with Clade shrieking in mourning, grieving for the lost rider that is the worst person in the world, Amber.
She is truly a nightmare.
Truly. And that brings us to the end of our chapter recap. Let's go into section superlatives. I didn't. Okay, section superlatives.
Hmm.
Um, all right. Who do you think gets a drama queen for this segment?
I mean, Amber, in theory, honestly, like, once again, Dane, but I feel like he has to be disqualified at some point.
I think this is the part where he's disqualified. He's just truly a living nightmare. I think we can take his crown away and give it to Amber.
It just seems like such a like trying to kill someone is such an overreaction to besting you. Truly,
Mhm.
like that's it.
Agreed. What do you think the craziest thing to happen was? And this was a long section of chapters, so a lot of crazy things happened.
Stopping time. I think personally, I love the concept of time travel and all of that. So for me, I would say stopping time.
I love that. And to go a little bit deeper into that, stopping time, freezing time, this whole thing of it being a power of Andarna's that she gives
Yeah.
to Violet, extremely, it's impossible as far as everyone knows.
Yeah.
But it's not, because she did it. I would say that, and then like honorable mention to Jeremiah the cadet manifesting the intrinsic signet, and then just that's it. Like no helping you out, no trying to like calm you down, bring you back from the brink. Just immediate snap snack. Okay, and then section MVP.
I would probably also give that to Andarna or Zayden.
I was gonna say both. I was literally the exact same thing.
Yeah. Just that little like section there is really interesting. Maybe I want to say Zayden just because like he clearly believed her.
Yeah,
So that jazz. Once again, at some point, Zayden has to be disqualified
he
from
probably
this.
does. No, but just everything after the whole attack where it's just so I have so many feelings. It's fine.
I love the like scary to flirty switch so fast.
Yeah.
For him just being like, I should have killed him slower, and she's like, you're gonna have to help me take off my corset. He's like, no issues.
Yeah, don't
I
worry.
got
Wink, wink.
you.
Um, that whole thing. And then, yeah, like, Violet doesn't tell him initially because she's got Dane's stupid voice in her head, not believing anything she's about to say. And Zayden is
Mhm.
like, we have to trust each other. Tell me. And then, without anything, Violet has no idea that this is going to happen. He goes up there and he's like, this is what happened. Please kill her,
Yeah.
essentially.
Without anything, and like very clearly without, like, it seems like Taryn and Violet could have easily shown him
Yeah.
memories. This is a connection. Didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
Didn't need it.
Nope. He just took her at her word, which is like so hot. Very MVP.
Yeah, he deserves MVP truly specifically for this section.
Yeah. And like, yes, and Darna too, honorable mention. She's just a little baby.
She is literally that. I just a thought on that. Well, we'll get into Jeff. Never mind. We'll get to it there. But I have some thoughts on that. But
Okay.
yes.
And that was section superlatives.
Woo.
We don't have a lot of new characters. I suppose we have Jeremiah, who again, introduced, named, dies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, within like half a page.
Is Professor Carr new?
Yes, Professor Carr
Terrifying.
is a
Terrifying introduction.
terrifying man. Um, we get Emery and Heaton and Quinn, just random characters,
Yeah.
not dead. Yay.
Great. They're alive.
And then our favorite character, our favorite new character, Justinia Neilwork, who, technically speaking, is not new because we have read her name before, folks. In the little thing in the beginning where like this whole book is transcribed by Justinia in the future.
We know one person guaranteed to make it through the book.
Yep, and that is Justinia.
Yeah. She's the only one that we have guaranteed.
Goodness.
So I freaked out when I read this the first time. I was like, it's just me. I wasn't expecting to see her as a character
I
in the
forgot
novel.
that she was mentioned in the beginning, so I had none of that reaction, but I was excited to meet a friend of Violet's.
That's fair. I remembered the name because it was just so odd. I maybe because I listened to it, it like stuck in my brain with such Sunny, and I was like, why did I hear that? And anywho, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. All right. So those are our new characters. We also get a bunch of dragons. I guess we can mention we have Amber's dragon, Cade.
Yeah,
Poor Cade. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm sorry, everyone.
it's Clyde,
Clyde.
but I don't know how it's spelled, and it's truly like only in this section for like 3 lines. I think it's Clyde, but it could be Cade. I don't know.
Maybe it's Clyde.
That would make sense
Yeah.
because she is like screaming it
Yeah.
in the thing, so there's like some inflection weirdness in it.
Yeah.
So
And then we also have Iatrum and Fierg and Sleeg, who are Riddick,
Rhiannon and
Rhiannon,
Sawyer.
and Sawyer's dragons. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are characters. I think now it's time for Colleen's Corner. Colleen's Corner.
Okay, so this is like my theory isn't quite the right word, but maybe a little bit. So this is the point in the story where I just can't handle Dane. Like I really tried to like excuse behavior up until this whole like trying to touch her
Not
without
at
permission.
all. I hate that man.
I I tend to give people passes for longer than I should. I truly relate to Violet on a deep level with this. Um, but it does seem to her, specifically with him, to be like a big change in character from what he was with him growing up. It also appears that he is essentially just a clone of Amber. So what I'm thinking is it's not really a theory. I think it's pretty much proven. You are who you hang out with, who you become. I think he looked up to Amber very clearly, half in love with her at one point. Something was going on there. I think she influenced him so much that he essentially turned into a mini her because he thought that's his only way to be successful because she became wing leader, right? So my guess is she was probably a squad leader before she became, or section leader or something before she became wing leader. So from that perspective, curious if Dane will change his behavior post Amber and post Violet's, whole thing. But what maybe Dane would have turned into or would have been like without Amber's influence.
Ooh, I love that. I mean, I love that so much. There's a lot of potential there.
Well, they're very clearly written as like parallel characters, essentially.
He was her close friend from the year before.
Yeah.
Who indeed would he become without Amber though?
I don't know. Well, so it seems like she knew he was a big rule follower, so that's not new. So it makes sense that he would be attracted to somebody like Amber, who very clearly, like, he grew up in a military family, rules are rules, you don't question them. That makes sense. I'm not surprised by that. And I don't think Violet really holds that part of it against him,
No.
necessarily, because I think she grew up with a similar
Yeah.
background. But I think, like, past the point of it being, like, reasonable is where she's just like, hey, this is not you. Like, you were not the friend that I climbed trees with
Yeah.
growing up. And I think she's trying to process. Like, I get that so it's kind of like that trauma bond thing. I don't know how most people are familiar with this concept, but when you go through something traumatic, the person that you bond with, it's a kind of a weird bond. It's also probably why the dragons bond so deeply because they're in trauma and then the bonds are going insane. You would trauma bond real fast.
Yeah.
But I think his like trauma bond person for the year was Amber. And I'm sure there maybe was a little bit of guilt in his mind because I think in his mind he like loved Violet, right? Like before he came in, like he was like Dylan, except he didn't propose before he came in, the one that died on the parapet. And I wonder if he was like upset with himself for like quote unquote cheating on Violet, even though they weren't together, and having all this weird stuff, and like kind of was like, if I get her out of here, maybe she won't fully notice that this is a thing that's happening, kind of thing, which I think would also feed into his obsession with her not being there. On top of, I think it was like his own embarrassment almost about it. And Dan's very self-centered,
I think
but
that makes a lot of sense when you look at his whole like wing leaders are above reproach. I follow all the rules. I would never bend a rule. He continuously reproaches Zayden. Everything that comes out of his mouth. And he also continuously tries to force Violet to break the rules and run. Like, that's
mhm,
against the rules. There's a reason that she would
mhm.
have to sneak into the quadrant of the scribes. And, like,
Yep,
this whole huge blind spot where he's like, I follow the rules. They're the most important thing, blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't bend the rules for Violet even if it would save her. He truly wouldn't step in to save her from physical threat and harm. But there's
yeah,
this whole
no.
weird mental image of what's threatening her that he is convinced that that's fine to break the rules for.
I also think that's a lot of I think he's just literally repeating Amber's words
Mhm.
back. Like, especially like with Zayden, like she very clearly did not like Zayden, did not like the marked ones, didn't like how he was doing things.
Yeah.
He truly like she was like his cult leader, essentially. Like he really bought it, hook, line, sinker. She was the ultimate whatever he needed to get through his whatever. And like I truly think her dying is gonna crash his whole like worldview
Yeah, I'm very
around.
curious what's gonna happen to him now.
I am begging him to change or go away. One of the two. He might not. It's going to take a little bit of time to unlearn. You don't just immediately unlearn the things that you've been taught.
Yeah,
But
it's true.
hopefully he can get back to who at least Violet
He used to
thought
be.
he was. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, agreed. And that was Colleen's Corner. Was that Colleen's Corner? Do you have more?
It was Colin's Corner.
Okay,
Yep,
I
yep.
think it's time to reintroduce a segment from season one, and that is, are they hot or are they a beast?
Because we have dragons. This is about to get real interesting, y'all. If you're parents and you don't want to see this section,
Just skip right on
just
through it.
Mom, you can just you can
Yeah,
fast
Heather,
forward.
I don't think you're watching this one because you already read all of ACOTAR. You're not going to read Fourth Wing 2. But if you are watching this, just skip this section.
Well, my mom is actively watching, so I mean, you can do what you want, but I'm just giving you a warning.
Yes.
Um, so
So let's start with our non-dragon characters.
okay,
Um, Jack Barlow. I know he's
beast,
technically hot, just a beast.
just a beast. I think he is a quintessential case of personality makes him ugly.
Yes.
Yeah, I also don't think he's necessarily that attractive because that's just not my type. But yeah, he's just a beast.
Agreed. Um, Dane Atos. Doesn't even qualify for this. I know he's technically hot. He's definitely not a beast. And I
Yeah,
think he's, again, personality makes him ugly. So
it does.
I think I really just introduced him to have the smugness of disqualifying him. I hate him
I was trying
so
to
much.
debate. I was like, I would put him in the hot category, but you can be hot and I can still dislike you. Like
Yeah.
objectively, I can think you're an attractive person and hate your guts at the same time.
You know what's really weird? I don't know if this is just like my own personal brain chemistry, but like I can think you're hot, but then if I realize that I don't like you as a person, you physically become unattractive to me. Like I no longer look at you and think you're objectively hot. I don't think you're hot anymore.
I'm that way with people that I may not initially find attractive, but then their personality makes them attractive. So I get that from that
And I have
standpoint.
that too, but it can very much go the opposite way for me too.
That's fair. It probably does for me. I just usually, if like, I would just not talk to Dane. I would just avoid him.
Yeah.
So I probably just don't think that much about it.
Uh, I think we all know what I feel about Zayden Ryerson.
He's so both.
He's so both.
He is quintessentially such a good. Well, I also love Zayden significantly. I read these, so I reread this one and the next book, both, and like especially in this one. So love Akatar. Switching to this is a little bit of a whiplash. I will say it's very different.
Yes.
Got how much I love Zayden to the point that I'm like in my office doing payroll, and at one point I just go, and I'm like, people are gonna think I'm insane. I'm like kicking my feet, like having to like stop and have a moment with myself, and I'm like, I had to take a break. Actually, I had to switch to something else.
Yes, yes. No, I did the chapter recap for this section right before we hopped on to record, and I was just like sitting in bed being like, "Oh my God, what?" Legitimately forgot how much I love Zayden Ryerson.
He's he's so good, like especially in like this, so good.
Yeah,
There's like, the whole like Shadow Daddy ranking. He's my number one
honestly,
by
yeah.
far in that category.
Hmm.
There's another person in the Sarah J. Maas universe. It's a close tie,
True,
but
true.
Zayden is just
Zayden is number one. So he's hot for all of the obvious reasons. He's a beast because he's 6'4". He has shadow magic. He is a rebel.
he also just is murder first, ask questions later kind of vibe.
So violent. He's so violent. And then like the thing that turns that beastliness even more hot is that he's so violent, but he's always so gentle with Violet physically.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, I'm dead. I'm just dead. It's fine.
Well, he's not violent. I think because he likes it. He's not violent because it brings him joy.
It's
It's
like
like
a,
sorry.
go ahead.
It's a protective violence. It's what Dane wants to be, but it's not there.
Agreed. Agreed. Uh, do we want to talk? I feel like Riddick is just hot.
Riddick is just hot. I do think he's pretty like jacked.
Yeah.
Like he's the definition, I think, of like a himbo a little bit.
Yes, he is. 100%.
If you know what a himbo is, I'm very much on the internet, but I think he would qualify that. Riddick is one of my
I
favorites.
love him so much.
I honestly, if I was Violet, Zayden is hot, I would think about Riddick.
Oh, yeah.
I would think about it. I'd be like, Riddick's gonna be fun.
Like, before she admits to herself that she's into Zayden, I would be like, I totally don't like Zayden. You know who's definitely willing, though? This hot guy over here. And that would be Riddick.
I would. the funny type is also just such a good, and he's like actually funny. He's not like mean funny. He's legitimately funny.
He's like a sweet, wonderful person who is just hilarious.
Yes. I'm like, "Ah, come on. I'm all over here like, Rhiannon, come on. Sawyer's great, but like Riddick was right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Segale.
Both.
Yes.
100% both. Without hesitation.
Absolutely. Which leads us to Taryn. Also both.
Also both. Yeah, they're like that hot power model couple that you see walking around, and they're like terrifying,
Yep.
but also really pretty.
So
And you're just like, man,
yeah.
love that for them.
Yep. To think that I could find a dragon so attractive, but here we are, folks.
No, they are.
Extremely.
Objectively. I think it's hard because of the personality persona of a dragon, because they're humanoid, right? Like, we get to hear them speak. Like, I don't think, like, the Game of Thrones dragons are attractive, so we don't hear them speak.
Mhm.
So that's a whole different thing. But, like, the personalities of dragons in general, I think, make them attractive.
Yeah. Segale is like hot mother. Like, Segale is the epitome of mother is mothering.
She's, I picture her, like, if she was in human's form, she is Morticia from the Addams Family.
Yes, I love that so much.
What I picture for her.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Taryn is like, he's like the, oh god, the dude from Buffy, the old English dude from Buffy.
Oh, the library guy?
Yeah, the library guy, but like grumpy. If that guy was grumpy.
Yes.
Right?
He
It's
does
like,
give
I
grumpy
always
to
thought that
Felicity.
he was kind of hot, but he's a little too nice. Give me a little grumps.
I thought you were going to say Spike, and I was like, honestly, not that far off. But
Oh, Spike! Taryn, when he was like a youth and he was like extremely sassy.
yes, I do think he is like leveled out.
Yes.
Spike.
Is
But
Taryn just Zayden?
you know, kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah. And with that, I think it's time, an hour and a half later, to finally get into our deep dive discussion.
Time for a deep dive.
Love the jingles.
Oh my god. I know that we've been talking for a long time, but there's so much to unpack in this section of chapters.
We truly, so like from the moment I know we talk about the pacing of this book, but like I think that's why people like it so much, and I guess we can get into that part of it. It is paced fast but well. Like, you don't really feel like you're like thrown into anything necessarily, but there's not like a slow moment.
Never.
We open the book on an argument. Like, there's not a dull moment.
And then continue on to the death of a character that we meet, get the whole backstory for, and then another character murders a person. Like,
it really set up the don't get attached thing, which so far, luckily, no one that I'm too attached to has died. Knock on wood.
Same. Oof, knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on all that wood. Don't tempt fate over here. But yeah, very excited.
Very excited. There's so much to talk about. There's two things that I had in my chapter notes that I would like to bring up, just points. So we learned that riding leathers are thicker and more sturdy than regular uniforms. And as opposed to their riders' uniforms, where they have all of these patches that have their rank and their personal achievements and their squad achievements and like all of that stuff, riding leathers have no information on them, like nothing that could get. This is so that when riders are out in the field, if they get captured by enemy forces, there's no information to tell them who they've captured. Which it's like a throwaway line almost, but it really grounds you back in like that this is a war college. They're in college for war.
Like, it's a military, this is basic training.
Yeah.
Essentially. Just with like specialized training thrown in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my other point later on in chapter 18, when we go to the scribes quadrant, is riders have all of their quirks and stuff. Scribes are supposed to remain composed to show how dedicated they are to their work. So Violet is extremely excited to see Jacinia. Jacinia is really excited to see Violet. They don't hug each other. They don't do like when Colleen and I see each other again, there's going to be tears and cries and screams and hugs and jumping.
Mhm.
And
Actually,
none,
pretty accurate.
um and none of that is allowed. It's not allowed for a scribe to show those emotions, which I thought is really interesting because we know Violet. I think it puts into context how she's been and her progression. She starts out quietly defending herself and quietly believing in herself. And by the time she has library duty, she's a full-blown writer. She's been training with Imogen, and she has two dragons in her mind. She's like survived so many things, and she's gotten used to the writer's quadrant where everything is, this might be our last moment with each other, so there's no holding anything back. And she really would, it really would have been a waste for her to be in the scribe quadrant, because she would have, right, she would have had to, she would never have blossomed into this like incredibly vibrant, intelligent, powerful person that she is. And I say powerful meaning like she is courageous, she's smart, she's training, she's pushing herself to all of her limits to overcome her body's limitations. Like she's so strong. It's incredible.
For all of like Lilith Sorrengail's like misgivings, I would say raising her children to have like really strong personalities and sense of selves was not one of them.
Yeah.
Like I think she did a really good job with both Violet and with. She was not a good mother, but I do think she instilled like a good sense of personality of personnel, and like because like Mira very much is like a self confident person as well.
Yeah.
So the thing I wanted to talk about, this is really like my only like thing with chunk of chapters outside of that O'Dane thing, is the whole Indarna being a baby thing, right? Love that. Excited for her. She's adorable. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
She bonded, right? She's gonna be full grown in the next like year or so. But they don't want Violet to tell anyone that she's a baby. When she's growing, how is she supposed to do that when her dragon comes back and is like quadruple the size?
Well, no one knows anything about Feathertails, so they can make something up.
That Feathertails just happen to grow. I get that, but objectively, if I'm looking at this dragon that doesn't have claws and is small, and then it comes back really big with claws and can breathe fire now,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna be like,
it's extremely obvious in hindsight that Andarna is a baby.
Which, like, I don't think it would have been if Andorna wouldn't fit. We're assuming, I guess. We don't know. But, like, more than likely, she's probably, like, all the other dragons grow into what looks like a normal dragon. So that's what we don't know what type
Right, we have
she
no
is.
idea.
I'm assuming a red or an orange if she's gold, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Or if all
Or brown.
babies are a brown. I love a brown. She doesn't really seem to be showing any, like, particular traits that we would really associate with one of them. But, like, eventually she's gonna, like, so then that also means she's not gonna be gold anymore. We're assuming. She's gonna be like, she's gonna look like a normal dragon, and they're gonna be like, that's not your dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll be like, that's Andarna, and they're like, what?
And they're gonna be like, excuse me?
What do you mean?
That is
Like, what was the
great.
long-term plan?
I don't know. No idea.
I don't think there is one, but I'm just, like, curious. I get not telling them now, and maybe, but, like, well, Andarna's not a baby, but that's not gonna prevent them from hunting other Feathertails or other babies.
Here's a
Later.
thought. Here's a thought is that they can tell the humans that Feathertails are babies, but leave out this whole power transferring ability. And so they're like, we don't usually let Feathertails bond because they're babies and they're not mature enough to choose a rider.
Mm-hmm.
But with Andarna, we made an exception because why did they even, I don't know why they made an exception.
Why is there an exception?
I don't know.
Also, the follow. Well, also, I'm just now realizing that this is probably gold because Andarn is gold. I never made that connection until I'm like looking at it directly in the camera. Like, right?
Yes, you're probably right. Oh my god.
We can't be the ones that haven't noticed that.
There's a lot
Surely.
of Kindle and audiobook readers out there who definitely did not notice that, okay? We're not alone.
That is true.
I cannot believe that you just said that. I guess I just kind of want to leave it with we know something is going on. So there's meetings with the marked ones, right? And then all of the marked ones that Violet sees the night of the attack are fully dressed despite it being 2 o'clock in the morning. And before that, when she was bringing Orly's stuff to the burning pit, Xaden, Garrick, and I believe it was Bodhi were returning from somewhere. So, like, I don't know what is happening, but that is something that we're going to need to keep an eye on.
It's definitely something interesting because, like, they're marked for a reason.
Yeah, so, like,
Because if you're guarding Violet,
brings up the other thing, like, are they actually, like, a special unit? Like, I feel like out of all of the professors there, like, Professor Kaori would have, like, a secret special unit of Rebellion Relic marked dragon riders for something that he's like, I feel like that's a possibility.
what is the squad that Umbridge puts together?
Oh, the Inquisitorial Squad?
Are they the Inquisitorial squad? That would be Dane. That would be Dane and
That
Amber.
would be Dane. They're Dumbledore's army.
There we go. I think. We don't know. We don't know what they are.
No idea. Dane would be part of the Inquisitorial Squad. That is so true.
It would be.
I think it's especially interesting because, again, they all have dragons. Like, they're bonded to dragons. These people that are out on night missions that we don't, supposed night missions, right? Like, they're all bonded to dragons. So we know that whatever they're doing is not malicious.
Yeah, because dragons wouldn't let them. That's
Which
true.
brings me back to the theory that, like, one of the professors has them doing something for something. And because Xaden is so powerful, he's unhinged theory. I don't know if it's unhinged. So the reason that it's all of these, like, rebellion, like, the marked ones are always, like, fully dressed and out and about at late hours of the night is because Xaden Ryerson is a shadow daddy, super powerful.
He is the Shadow Daddy, yes.
He's extremely powerful. He's the Shadow Daddy. And because of that, some professor has recognized his power, and he is known to be loyal to protecting Navarre because he's got a dragon. And so they allow him to choose a team of people to carry out special missions. And we don't know what the special missions are. But because all of these other marked ones also have dragons, they're like, yeah, sure, we'll just ignore the whole 3 or more thing for this special mission unit that you're allowed to do. That's my theory. All right, folks, next episode, we're going to be talking about chapters 21 through 25 of Fourth Wing. So read along and tune in on Spotify or YouTube. We'll see you later.
Hello.
Hi, me again. I am here to let you all know where to find us. You can find us on Instagram at BookWitchesPod. You can find us on Spotify at BookWitches with a B. You can find us on YouTube at BookWitches with a B, and you can find us on TikTok at BookWitchesPod. All of this information is also going to be listed below our episode, and it's going to be listed in the ending credits if you're watching along with us in the videos. We'll catch you guys soon.